Something strange is happening at Celtic Football Club, and I know that's not the statement or sentence that you want me to start the week with. I'm the one who's been ushering for optimism and positivity throughout what's been a pretty frustrating summer for Celtic supporters, but something strange is happening. And I don't mean on the park, we're fine. Brendan Rodgers and this Celtic squad have started the season very, very well, and everything is to be positive about, I think, on that front. However, behind the scenes, more and more questions arise every day about the running of Celtic Football Club, and I feel like I want to talk about that. I want to analyse that, because something is seriously off, and I can't think for any plausible reason as to why that is. So let's talk about that, shall we? If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. We're back this week and hopefully what will be a busy week for Celtic as we begin our qualification campaign for the UEFA Champions League. We of course have the rest of the transfer window to discuss as well. So there might be a double upload today, a video to try and cheer myself up later after getting it all off my chest this morning. But over the weekend I've been thinking about a lot of things, and I feel like this is a video that I have to make. Now, before I even go any further with this, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I know I might sound sort of hypocritical in this video, and I know people will be quick to point that out, because I'm the one that's been told all summer that I've been too optimistic and too positive, and that I have been ignoring the telltale signs of what could be a disaster for Celtic. And I know people will be quick to paint me as a hypocrite in this video, but this isn't a video about Celtic's recruitment. It's not just that I want to talk about. This isn't me talking about what has been a bit of a slow transfer window. I want to talk about what seems to be the bigger picture at Celtic Football Club right now, and a lot of things that indicate there's a lack of care at the club. And I'm just going to be totally honest about it, because over the weekend, especially after certain stories cropped up on Friday night, I feel like it's been hard to ignore. And this channel has always been a channel for me to talk very honestly about my football club and to give all of my opinion. And I've had a lot of opinions that I want to air over the weekend, and I've finally got the time to sit down and do that now. So yeah, the tip of the iceberg for some people might be the transfers, might be the lack of signings in the past month or so, but I think there's a lot of problems at the club that go deeper than that, and it just feels strange because we aren't operating at the level Celtic Football Club should be. And I get it, some people will just say that this is a needless moan, that it's an attempt for clicks, that everything will be fine in a few weeks when Celtic makes signings and we won't care about the rest. We should care about the rest. And it's something that I think desperately needs to be addressed at the next AGM and brought up with the Celtic hierarchy, because there are a number of areas at this club right now that aren't being operated at elite level standards, and Celtic are an elite level club. So I want to look over a few of those things today, because this isn't something that's new. This is something that has came and went over the years, and I think it will continue to, unless something is said or done about it. And I'm not saying I'm the guy that's going to do something about it. Christ, I'm just some loser who has a YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure the club don't care what I have to say in regards to all these things. However, I feel like we need to understand why Celtic fans are feeling rightly frustrated by the club at the minute, and what needs to be done moving forward, because it doesn't feel like anything's going to change. As I said, the tip of the iceberg seems to be recruitment, seems to be the transfer situation, which has left Celtic fans with a bitter taste in the mouth. And obviously throughout the beginning, the opening portion of the transfer window, I was on this channel ushering calm, ushering patience. But the fact that we've got to here, the 18th of August, with a lot of work to do and so little time to do it, well, I was the naive one, and I'll hold my hands up and say I was wrong, because Celtic are gambling. And why Celtic gamble, I think, beats every Celtic supporter. We don't know why. And the fact is as well, Brendan Rodgers has shared his frustration about it numerous times, and we still continue to gamble with it. And I don't know if it's for the sake of Champions League qualification. I don't know if it's for the sake of any other outside reason. But the fact that Brendan Rodgers, a top-level manager at Celtic Football Club with a year left on his contract, is being gambled by the Celtic board, it feels like a lack of concern and care for the club. Why risk losing a manager of Brendan Rodgers' calibre for the sake of not spending money? I just can't wrap my head around it. You are looking at one of the most successful managers, statistically speaking, the most successful manager of the 21st century at Celtic, and you're willing to throw him away because you won't back him and you won't match his ambitions. and Celtic fans are calling it out. Brendan Rodgers is calling it out, whether it's straight out or subliminally, and nothing's been done about it. And I get it, people will sit here and they'll say, in a few weeks' time that might change, and it might, but we shouldn't be in a position where Celtic are needing a huge amount of reinforcement with less than 20 days left in the transfer window. That feels like malpractice at the highest level. And for a club that is meant to be the standard bearer in Scottish football, and the height of professionalism in Scottish football, to then be in the position that they are right now, with so many complaints from supporters and complaints from their own manager, and their own manager talking about an uncertainty in his future at the club, that should be a wake-up call, and it's not. This is the transfer chart for the summer, and you can start to see why Celtic fans are so annoyed, because outside of that opening month, Celtic haven't conducted enough transfer business to signal ambition to drive forward. And the latest signing, Jemai Simpson-Pusey, was a loan move. It wasn't even a permanent signing, and there's probably no scope to sign him permanently. And when you compare that to the outgoings, the amount of money we've brought in for Nicholas Kuhn alone, alongside other players, sell-on clauses for players that used to play for Celtic in the past, we are seeing a minimal investment put back into the Celtic squad. £3 million has been spent this summer. As up to this point. £3 million. That is a joke. And there's no communication as to what's meant to be happening moving forward. It feels like even the manager doesn't know what's going to happen, and he can't communicate to us. You compare this with the communication a club like Hibs has given their supporters. They sat down with their new chief executive, Dan Barnett, to talk about his appointment and his plans for Hibs moving forward, where they spoke very honestly about recruitment and transfer strategy. We get nothing like that at Celtic. This is Hibs, and it's not the only club in Scotland to do it. With all due respect to Hibs, another world apart from Celtic. They are the third biggest team in Scotland at this moment in time. Celtic are by far the biggest team in Scotland, and there is no communication. In fact, the only communication you ever get with the board at Celtic always feels like it comes with a bit of, it's like they detest us. And they don't want to tell us. And because they're doing so well from a business point of view in their boardroom, they treat us with utter contempt. As if we can't question what's going on. And yet communication at all these other clubs in Scotland, all down the league, is much, much better. And the fact is now, it's not just Celtic supporters who are seeing this malpractice at the boardroom level. It's clubs all over Europe, because they're all talking about this. This was the chief executive of Go Ahead Eagles, saying that Celtic could take a leaf out of Rangers' book when it comes to transfer negotiations. That was his exact words. He complimented how things moved very, very quickly with Rangers in signing Oliver Antman, and then said that the gap was too wide for Celtic's bid for Jakob Briem, and that they could have taken a leaf out of Rangers' book. That is humiliating. So humiliating. And I get it. If we took a leaf out of Rangers' book, we'd be bloody liquidated. We shouldn't be taking leafs out of Rangers' book. But we know how the whole Jakob Briem transfer saga has been farcical. It's been laughable. And it'd be different if Go Ahead Eagles were exaggerating or telling straight lies. But we know that Celtic went about things in a laughable manner, and we deserve to be laughed at. And they're saying it out loud. Benjamin Siegrist, former Celtic goalkeeper, he spoke very honestly in an interview this past week about his exit from the club, and basically spoke about how Celtic were holding him for ransom and how the Celtic board were very poor at handling his exit. These were his exact words. In January, I had another team in a league in another country playing European football that wanted me. I was on holiday and everything was agreed. Then I found out that Celtic hadn't responded to the team in 4 weeks. I'd done everything to push through the move. I spoke to Stevie Woods. He said to me that I could go. I spoke to the new team, spoke to everyone. It was a done deal. I was ready to pack up. And then some people on the Celtic board just didn't respond to any of the inquiries from the other team. What other big club operates like this? This is damning stuff from a former Celtic player, who I am inclined to believe, by the way, because it isn't the only example of this happening. In fact, all you need to do is look at this summer. Because we're hearing that Plymouth are losing patience with Celtic over the handling of the Stephen Welsh loan move. He's supposed to be moving to Plymouth or Gale on loan down south. And apparently Celtic are just ignoring it and just holding out as long as they possibly can to sort their own centre-back situation at the expense of another club. That's not the only example, because the exact same thing is happening with Rapid Vienna in their pursuit of Marco Tilio. He's supposed to be completing a loan move with an obligation to buy, or an option to buy, over to the Austrian side, and they've publicly spoken about how Celtic are holding up the deal. Even though terms and such have been agreed, Celtic are the only club in football who seem to operate in this way. And my biggest problem with this is, what an advert for the club, eh? What an advert for players overseas, abroad, who might be looking at Celtic as a possible destination. They hear the interest is there, and then they hear these horror stories of complete mistreatment when allowing a player to leave the club, or the farcical negotiations. Why would you want to enter contractual negotiations with Celtic Football Club when you hear these stories, if you're just going to be shortchanged constantly? This is a horrible advert to put out there for the club. And I feel sorry for the likes of Benjamin Siegrist, Stephen Welsh, Marco Tilio, who are having their careers stagnated at the sake of a greedy Celtic board who won't sell and won't buy to replace these players. We are actively harming the careers of professionals who are looking to move on, and for no other reason other than a bit of greed, it feels like. And it's just horrible stories that you don't hear about any other club. So the Celtic board have a lot to answer for when it comes to transfers, negotiations, player departures, and that's just football operations. The thing is, it doesn't end at just the footballing operations. On Friday night, Celtic played Falkirk in the second round of the Scottish League Cup, and fans noticed a big change in entering the stadium. Now, you may have already seen photos and threads on Twitter and other social media sites about this security clampdown, but essentially, getting into the stadium was a chore on Friday night, and as you can see from the images I will put on screen, Celtic have enforced new techniques and new strategy to clamp down on fan migration in the stadium, which essentially is the moving of seats in the stadium. They don't want Celtic supporters to move to other seats during a football match, which is fair. It's fine. For the interest of safety, I understand that. I understand that's the case. But the way in which Celtic have went about it is sheer stupidity, contempt for supporters, and a backtrack on their own safety standards. So credit to The Cynic, who are another Celtic fan-led podcast and media outlet who reported this on Saturday. It was a thread of their findings from the game on Friday, basically saying that the club have tried to clamp down on fan movement within the stadium, but have done so very shoddily and very stupidly. Stewards don't seem to have been trained. There's been no specific training given out, and even they were unsure on how to handle these new safety or regulation measures. And this isn't me moaning about the stewards themselves or the people who have been put in this position. It's unfair on them, and in fact I feel sorry for them being put in this position, because when questioned and when asked about the new regulations, all they could do apparently was shrug their shoulders and tell them that they're not really sure what they're supposed to do. There was nothing to indicate what was actually happening. There was stewards put in the middle of walkways, blocking movement, blocking travel. There was big silver fences put up. I mean, I couldn't help but think, what if there's a fire? What if something disastrous goes on, some incident within the concourses, and you can't move freely because they've put up big stupid silver gates and barriers? What a stupid and foolish thing to do. And basically, there was a lot of movement being blocked. There was a lot of uncertainty about these new rules and regulations. There was a lot of mistreatment to supporters as well, who decided to ask questions. And all I can think of is, have we not learned our lesson? From incidents that have happened in football stadia around the world over the years, have we not learned our lesson? If you haven't got something that is tried and tested and approved and ran through so well, why risk the safety of supporters? We have seen what's happened in football grounds in the past. And Celtic, when trying to clamp down on incidents that affect fan safety, why then put your fans at risk? Why? It's stupid. Now, the only positive about this is that supporter liaison officer John Paul Taylor did acknowledge the complaints and has said that he's raised it with the club to look at what they can do and what they can fix moving forward. And all credit to John Paul, because he's always listening to the supporters on social media, and I feel like he's very active at trying to make things better. But the club itself, at the higher level, just seem to be treating supporters with such contempt at the minute. And I feel like the examples of it are just growing by the year. Which even applies to things as trivial and as small as this. I mean, what are the club thinking? Was there not somebody who looked at the design process of the new dugouts and looked at what was being done and thought to themselves, maybe we should look at the view of the supporter here? Because it feels like they just don't care about the average supporter. I mean, this is somebody's seat from the dugouts in recent years. Fine, you can see the park. I wouldn't personally choose to sit that close to the park and that close to the dugouts. It's never been my cup of tea to sit that close to the park. But there's supporters who do want to sit there and have sat there for years. This is their view now. This is their view now. Who approved this? Who cares about this, is what I ask. There are supporters who have had their season ticket views restricted because of stupidity. And that feels like it just... This is something so small and trivial, but I feel like it extends over so many different areas of the club. Where is the care? Oh, and remember that storm damage that took down sections of the cladding and display at the Jock Stein stand back in January? Remember that? Storm damage. It ripped down the big Celtic Park display. It exposed the natural look of Celtic Park, and it was supposed to be fixed. That was in January. It's August. It's not fixed. It's not fixed. Looks lazy, poor, cheap. It exposes a part of the stadium that isn't the nicest looking. And the club haven't bothered to fix it. I don't know what the reasons for it is. I'm not sure. I can't speak to the logistics of everything. But it's poor. And nothing's been said about it. Nothing's been done about it. Does anyone at the club actually care? That's my question. So just to finish up, I feel like there's a lack of care over many different areas of the club right now. And not enough is being done to reassure Celtic fans that the right people are at the club caring for this club. And I know there will be people down there who are endless backers of the board and endless supporters of the board that have delivered us so much success, to be fair to them, and will say that everything's fine. But to glance over all of this and pretend that nothing is going on and that nothing is wrong at Celtic Football Club, alongside the many different videos I've had to make over the years criticising aspects of how the club is being run, is so naive and so foolish. I feel sorry for you if you think everything is fine, because it's not. And I do question what is going on. You will notice that I haven't taken part in any of the fan media things at the club in quite a while now. I couldn't tell you the last time I was at a press conference. It might have been when Brendan Rodgers was unveiled as manager, and that's because I feel that, and I'll speak very openly and honestly about this, I feel that the fan media experience at Celtic isn't taken seriously and isn't implemented as well as it could be. I feel like it's a waste of everyone's time. And we aren't being treated the way that the rest of the media is being treated. And I get that. I'm not sitting here begging for us to be treated in a different way. I'm not begging for more, because I don't feel like there is a point. And I'm not that entitled to ask for more. But it's another aspect and area of the club which could be done better. And I feel like that just sums up a lot of the areas on and off the park at Celtic right now. The manager and the players, they're doing their job and they're doing it very well. But I don't feel like it's being matched in other areas of the club right now. So that's how we start the week on this channel. I don't know if this was a video I necessarily had to make. I'm sure some people won't be happy about it. But it's an opinion-based channel. And that's my opinion. So, like it or lump it. I'll see you next time.